explain the script writing process.
Okay, for those of y'all that don't know how many of you have seen Ghost Stories, just out of curiosity? Awesome, okay. ADD got the rights to a show called Ghost Stories in high school. It was, putting it nicely, a turd of a show. Even the Japanese, when they licensed it, told ADD, look, this didn't do well on TV. You may have to work with this show a little bit. And they asked, what can we do? And they're like, you can do whatever you think will make this show sell. That being said, we tore the butt out of that show. Here were the only rules we had to go by. Because you might have asked that because all of the actors got script writing credit. Or the main characters were all listed as script writers. We couldn't change the names of any of the characters. We couldn't change the names of the ghosts because they're all based on real Japanese ghost legends or Chinese ghost legends in some cases. We could not change how that ghost was killed. So like if it was killed by rubbing two sticks together and chanting a magical phrase, that's the way we had to kill it. That being said, we could change the magical phrase. Like, I'm sure in the original it was not katabe, katabe, you kick the bucket, katabe, katabe, you can suck it. I don't think that's what was said. And we couldn't change the meaning of that episode. That being said, we were allowed to make any raunchy, wrong, horrible, weird joke we wanted to. And the thing is, we were crucified for it when we first did it. They're like, I can't believe anybody would destroy it. It's such a wonderful show. And I'm like, are we talking about the same boring show? It's like a Scooby-Doo kind of show. It's a horrible show. And like poor Christine's Otten character, they decided halfway through the show she's this crybaby little boy, and they started calling her retarded halfway through. Like in the third episode, and from that point on, Christine's character made like, she's this crybaby. But it was my idea to start making fun of Christian Slater, which I didn't know would be a joke that ran through the rest of the series. I just made a joke in one episode. I'm like, remember when Christian Slater had a career? And that's what started it all. And then every episode there was some slam on Christian Slater. But that being said, there was an authentic translated Japanese subtitle version with the original voices. So if you're a purist, you can watch it and hopefully get a nap. But that's still there. But I like the idea that, otherwise in America, no one would have seen this show. I mean, honestly, in the States, the anime market is saturated at certain times. They're just 40 shows coming out at once. So in an effort to sell more than 6 copies of a show, we actually ended up doing something very strange and very funny. And while we're lucky that we work for 2 very, very good anime companies that have a lot of integrity, they would never do something like that to Evangelion or Samurai 7. But a second-rate Saturday morning show, sure. And it was very fun. But people thought that we improv the show, and we did make it up as we go along, but it had to fit the mouth flaps. So, it was a matter of figuring out how to make certain jokes work. But and I just told somebody a while ago there were jokes that we had to take out of the show because they were too far. Stephen made a joke about Jonathan Brandis, and no one realized that he had just committed suicide. I'm like, dude, you can't make that joke. And they're like, why? I'm like, that kid just hung himself. Oh, no, he didn't. I'm like, look it up on the internet. Look it up right now. And Stephen was like, oh, we're going to have to get Chris Patton to come re-record that line. So, I mean, we did try to stay close to safe and decent humor, but sometimes we went too far. I liked it sometimes. Now, we'll see if you can pick out Vic's voice in that show.
A lot of people that were in the show were telling me for months, oh man, we made fun of you today.
Yeah, I got it, you got it, Chris got it. The funniest is David Williams got it first.
Really?
Hillary's character is climbing up a ladder and you can see her underwear. Well, one of the founders of ADV is a really good friend of ours, David Williams, but he has a thing for the jiggly show. He has all the dirty pair figures and all. I mean, his office is the bouncy women of anime. That being said, Hillary's character is climbing up a ladder and you can see her underwear and she's like, my God, it's a cartoon. Stop looking at my dress. And it's going to black, he goes, David Williams. They made fun of, all of us got made fun of in that show. And it's funny if you know the American voice actors. If not, all the other jokes are funny. You know, I mean, we try to have a joke for everybody in that show.
When I had heard about the nature of the show, and I'm like, man, you know, I would never, I don't know how I could ever be a part of a show like that, because it was just so crazy, and people would say, oh yeah, I don't even remember what they said, something about Christian having my baby, or
Hillary having your baby.
so, but I'd never seen the show, but I heard it was really hilarious, and everybody was talking about it. And then finally, Stephen Foster, who was directing it, called me and said, I want you to do this character for Ghost Stories. I'm like, oh. And so I got in there, and it started out pretty good. I'm like, okay, he's cool, but and then it just went
Dark.
and I mean, started saying all these really raunchy things, and of course, Steve's making them up as we
And
go.
writing it as we go.
Yeah, he's
on.
like, oh, forget that, you don't have to say that. And he's making new stuff up, and all of a sudden I could just see it going south really quick. So suffice to say, Vic Mignogna is not in Ghost Stories.
There's an alien.
But someone else is.
That's a really, but that's something that we do get the option of doing sometimes if we start working on a show and we don't agree with the content of it. We're given the option of using an alias. Oh, I almost did, and I didn't know how dirty the show was until after it was out. And being an anime fan, I was like, okay, I don't think I want my name associated with hentai. But this, I was told, was an ecchi title. And I'm like, okay. It was Dragon Knight 4, Wheels of Time. That being said, I play Little Kakaru, so he's never in any of the dirty scenes, although there's this old man that's always blowing kisses to him. That thing's pretty creepy. But I looked at my parts, and I'm like, nah, you can let somebody else. I came up with a really vulgar, hysterical alias. And I was like, yeah, that's my name. And then when it was all said and done, I'm like, put my name on it, it's fine. Well, then when I got the disc, I watched it with my folks. Which my dad loved it. My mom was just like, oh my God. What is this? But it was preparing her for when my brother brought Gantz home and we all watched it. But I almost used an alias on Dragon Knight. But the one thing I was going to say, when someone does use an alias, please respect that actors wish to not have their legitimate name associated with it. Tiffany Grant's alias is very well known. It's not hard, and she's got a voice that's not hard to pick out. But if an actor has said they don't want their name associated with a title, it's usually for a good reason. And it drives me nuts when I see people on the internet be like, well, Tiffany Grant is also AKA, Misty Canyon or something like, that's not her fake name. But like, the actor has a right to say, you know what, this is too much. This is just too much. Monica's used one, Hillary's used one, you've used one. I mean, it means...
I made the mistake of letting Steven make it up, though. That was a mistake.
At least you didn't get my hand me down. Mine was awful. I let someone, I'll tell you when there's not people around.
You know what?
But, speaking of people...
Yeah, you know what? He just mentioned we could have Q&A all day. We could sit and talk with you
And
guys
we've
all
got a
day.
voice acting panel in a little bit that's
Yeah.
about the craft of voice acting.
And we could also sign autographs all day. So we can't do everything, as much as we would like. But having said that, this panel was meant to be kind of a little Q&A and some signing. How do you want to organize it?
Like, stop by and then, let me listen to it. I can